Hello and welcome to Performance Check. My name is Rob, and today I want to talk about something that I feel is very special, and it's something that you can definitely infuse into your role-playing game experience, both as a GM and a player. I want to talk about emotional weapons. Now, what do I mean by that? A quick explanation as to why I'm making this video first. So, over the past couple of days, I've been thinking about Star Wars. God knows why, right? I'm a huge fan of Star Wars, and for those of you watching, if you're a fan of Star Wars too, I'm sure that you will love these things equally to me, and that is the lightsaber. The lightsaber is, well, one, a really, really cool weapon, and two, particularly in the original trilogy and in The Force Awakens, whenever there's a conflict involving the lightsaber, usually there's an awful lot of emotional stakes. If you think to New Hope, for example, old Ben Kenobi facing off against the student that fell to the dark side, there's a lot of weight there. Luke Skywalker facing Vader on Bespin, facing the man who killed his father, right? There's always some kind of emotional core to those conflicts. It isn't just a random sword fight. It is an emotional conflict that is symbolized by those decorative, excellent light shows that a lightsaber duel is. Now, there's something in particular about a lightsaber that gives away everything about the character that's using it. I'd like you to think about Kylo Ren from The Force Awakens. Whenever he ignites his lightsaber, Kylo Ren is always very hunched forward and he flicks his arm down like that. And as he does so, the blade ignites and it's that fiery kind of shattered kyber crystal effect that causes his lightsaber to appear like it's flaming, you know. It's an aggressive forward motion as he ignites the weapon. And that alone tells you everything you need to know about the character. You can see that he is angry, you can see he is aggressive, wanting to achieve something. He is wanting to prove himself in a lot of ways as well. Kylo Ren is a very insecure villain, as you'll know if you've seen The Force Awakens. Now, in direct contrast to that, think of old Ben, Obi-Wan Kenobi. And if you watch New Hope, and he sees Vader at the end of that corridor, he's holding his lightsaber, and he's holding it sort of defensively to his side like that, and then he just and takes a stance very slowly. And what does that tell you about the character? Well, that tells you that he is practiced, thinking, he's cautious, he's wise, like he's considered. It isn't an aggressive instant motion. It is locking eyes with a particular character, weighing the options, then activating the weapon. Think of Luke Skywalker on Bespin when he is facing Darth Vader in the carbonite chamber. You'll notice that when Luke activates his lightsaber, he takes a step forward and with a very concentrated, determined face. You can see that although he is falling back on his teachings from Obi-Wan and Yoda, he isn't that confident. He is just falling back on the basics. He is going through the motions. I'm about to be in a lightsaber duel now. I'd better take up this stance. I'm there. And then in an instant, he loses his cool and basically, after a few swipes, really goes for Vader. Think about Vader in that scene. Vader is holding his lightsaber with one hand, activates it almost lazily, confidently, deflecting Luke's attacks with one hand. Why am I talking about this? Like, just the activation of different lightsabers throughout different Star Wars films. Well, imagine your character in whatever role-playing game we're talking about. Usually I talk about D&D, so I will use that as an example. How does your character draw their weapon? Is he angry? Is it an instant kind of ferocious advance? Is it cautious, wise, considered? Is it uh, going through the motions and falling back on something they believe to be right, something that they believe will get them through the situation, but aren't that confident? You might be a player that isn't too comfortable about expressing emotions in character, or you just don't want to play an emotional character. That's absolutely fine. But this technique, this way of looking at it, is taking something that, say, a fighter character could do, someone who isn't really open to showing emotion, through giving direct, definitive, and short character descriptions on how they draw their weapon. I draw my weapon and I fling it to my side aggressively, pacing towards my opponent, which I must destroy. You'd only need to say those few words and already you've just evoked an emotional state from the act of drawing a weapon. It's things like these that you can really consider about your character because it portrays so much. And let's face it, in D&D or in a lot of role-playing games, a lot of the time it's combat centric. Well, D&D is anyway. Let's face it, there's an awful lot of to do with combat in D&D. But with a consideration for just that minute detail, just a small thing off the cuff, you can tell so much about that character without having to give a lengthy, overblown description as to what they're feeling. Simply by saying, say you're playing an aggressive character stance like that of Kylo Ren, perhaps, then you will say that the blade is out before you blink. Hunched, determined, like just ... like, and you've got it. And it's usually when in that moment people are rolling the die and checking what their number is, looking at their character sheet to see what their initiative modifier is, saying the number, and then going. That's fine. But when it comes to your turn, when it comes to your moment to act, or if you're GMing and you're wanting your NPCs to do this, like, don't be afraid to say what kind of mood they draw their weapon in. I know it might sound a bit over analytical, perhaps. It really just sings home that message as to the mood that that person's in, you know. And you don't have to have the character speak. It is just a really simple description as to how they get ready for the fight, how they act in the seconds before conflict erupts. You know, a lot of people say that it's hard to know someone truly until they've faced, you know, real danger. There's nothing more dangerous than going into a fight with swords and magic and dragons, you know, like there's in that world anyway. Nothing more dangerous at all. The main point I'm trying to make is if you look to film, if you look at the choreography, the fight choreography is an emotional language. It's telling you a story. It's telling you a story about human beings at a moment of truth, where everything is laid bare, nothing is hidden. The motivations are in front of you all. A very human moment. A lot of the time that can be forgotten in a role-playing game because obviously you're playing a game, but you know, to a real individual who is potentially about to die in any one of those fights that you're in, this is a really good way of portraying a spectrum of emotional range without having to go too much into detail, and it doesn't slow the fight down. I like my fights to be pacey. People ask me how, you know, the sort of the things what I do to make my fights in the games that I run the way that they are, and I like to tell them is to don't slow down, keep it pacey, and really focus on the emotional intensity of a fight, why you're fighting, and are you confident about that fight? Are you angry about that fight? Are you not wanting to fight at all and you're simply defending yourself? It's these things to consider that will make your fights rich and unforgettable. Hope you've enjoyed this video. I'm probably going to talk a bit more about kind of like the emotions behind a fight. I don't know, that sounds pretty crazy. I've always enjoyed, you know, seeing and performing sort of stage combat. And I think it's something that you can put a lot of thought into and get some really great results in your game. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you liked it, then maybe give it a like. And if you want to see more like it, then give me a subscribe or not. We're all friends here. Or are we? Thanks for watching, and I hope that all of your performances are up to standard. Full stroke.